welcome to my tutorial for Clash Force for the Switch. And I believe this might be on a few other platforms. It's actually on sale now on the Switch for about $2, so it was real cheap, but it's actually quite a good game for what it is. I'm definitely going to create a review on the game, and I'll post that up as well. And for this tutorial, this is just going to be my edited playthrough, which has all the deaths edited out. And I'm just going to comment over it and give some of the strats I used. It took me around 59 minutes to beat. And it could take up to a few hours, just depends on how proficient you are with these kind of games. But it offers a little bit of a moderate challenge on some of the stages, I would say. Some of the stages can be a little bit challenging. It took me some trial and error. You basically just have jump and shoot. That's all you can really do in the game. So if you hold the jump down for longer, you'll do higher jumps. I was actually mapping a joystick, and on the modded joystick I was using, the jump and fire buttons were a little bit farther out on the joystick for whatever reason. But it didn't, for a joystick, it doesn't really matter. You just place your hands a little bit farther out. So it's not as big of a deal as it is on a regular gamepad. Basically you have about 20 stages, I believe, but they're divided up into sections. So there's a few different sections for each little biome. In this, you kind of have this kind of jungle-looking area, and that's going to have maybe 3 or 4 stages, and there'll be a boss on the last stage of that little section, and then you go on to the next theme. So there's a few different themes in the worlds. After each little stage, you have a bonus stage where you can try to grab a weapon power-up, or if you time it right, you can grab a shield, which is helpful. That'll let you take at least an extra hit. I'm not sure how many hits it lets you take, maybe 1 extra hit. You have 3 hearts, which is shown in the upper left, and when you get hit, you lose a heart, so you can only take 3 hits before dying. There are no checkpoints in the stages, so you do have to start the stages from the beginning, and when I say stage, I'm talking about these little sections. Not the whole world, but just this little stage here. You'll have to redo it if you lose a life. So there's the shield up here, which is worth getting. And there's nothing really too complicated as of now. Each weapon power-up is a little bit different. This one has a wider shot, but I don't like it for most situations because, it's a weaker shot. It may even be weaker than your base shot that you start with. But this is a good weapon. This purple one I like. Probably one of my favorite weapons because it does good damage. It doesn't have a wide spread or anything, but it kills shit pretty quick. For these guys, you just want to dodge the bullets and stay back and shoot them until they're dead. But yeah, you got your little bonus stages after each one. So some of the stages are kind of long, but they're nothing is super long, but they're kind of long for how dense they are. There's a lot going on, so you will have to memorize those, and there are a few tricky sections. So you see I left a death in accidentally, but you see what happens. When you die, you just start the stage over. So you see I'm starting right back here again. And, you can try out the different weapons, but it's pretty standard. If you do collect heart power up, you can, replace some of your life. You'll get 1 piece of life back if you find those. There's a shield here that's easy to grab, so grab that. I was able to pull some bullshit on the final boss, so that could be kind of useful. I also found some positioning tricks on at least one of the bosses. I found a position where you don't have to dodge anything. You can just point blank the boss. So there's some useful little strategies here that I thought might be worth making a tutorial for, even though this game isn't too complicated. I was experimenting with some different modded joysticks, and initially my Quanba modded stick was working nice for this, but then when I played the minecart level that's coming up soon, the controls were all fucked up, and I'm not sure what was going on with that. So I switched to another one of my joysticks, and then I beat it. So I don't know if my joystick was having some trouble. See, for that joystick, I'm using an adapter called the Magic S adapter, I believe, and that allows you to use pretty much any controller on the Switch. And, I don't know if there was some kind of conflict there. I mean, I've used it with the adapter before, but, sometimes with adapters, weird shit can happen. And maybe I just wasn't used to the physics of it, where you do kind of seem to slide off the platform sometimes, which is kind of weird. Maybe because they're moving, it changes the physics somehow. I'm not sure exactly what was going on with that. I noticed when I would flick the stick left and right, the character wouldn't turn, and I would audibly hear the click of the joystick. So it felt like something was off. I was like not getting inputs to register. But for this, you mainly just want to, you're going to have to memorize it, but you're mainly going to want to, make sure you try to jump pretty frequently so that you can, shoot these bats out of the air. And for those turrets, you can pretty much stay on the end of this middle platform like I did here, and you won't get shot. But you will have to kind of jump and shoot some of the things, otherwise they'll just come right up on you and hit you. So it's a little tricky. And that's probably the hardest stage of this little world. I don't think there's anything too challenging here. Aside from that, it was a little tricky. It's basically just a little bit of memorization. It was made a lot harder for me because of my controller issues initially, but I switched controllers after several minutes of that. And then I beat it pretty quick. So there's another shield up here if you want to try to grab it. I already had one, so I didn't even bother. But you can jump pretty high in this game if you hold the jump button for the maximum length of time. So, it does make the platforming more forgiving. You can try to jump both of these possibly, or you can just go in between each one if you want to be safe. That's what I did. A lot of these stages I beat on my first try, so I didn't really know what was coming up. So sometimes I'd play a little carefully. And then, of course, some of them I got far in them on my first try, but didn't beat them. So I knew what was there, to a certain point. But yeah, whenever you see these triple fire little turrets on the ceiling, take them out. It just makes it a lot easier if you take them out ahead of time. In this game, playing slow and shooting shit and killing shit off slowly, kind of inching the screen, is very effective on a lot of stages. So that is a strategy that was great for a lot of old games in this style. That one I wasn't sure if I could jump and shoot that with the weapon I had, so you may not be able to kill all of them. But just take out the shit that's in your way, obviously. It's worth taking out that turret on the ground, because I believe they turn around and shoot at you in the other direction as well. These are easy enough to take out if you're a little bit patient. You can just go back and jump off this ledge and get some shots in. It just makes it easier to clear shit out. And I believe, you can take this one out as well. I shouldn't have even gotten hit there, but you get the idea. That one is placed in a little bit of a dangerous area. You can't really take it out before, without having to cross through it, so just dodge it. There's nothing else going on, though, so it's very easy. So for this boss, I pretty much stay on this platform for most of the fight. And then once it starts going real spastic and speeding up, then I went down on the bottom platform. And that was really all I did. I mean, I took 2 hits, so I almost didn't beat it, but you get to start right on the boss. There's no lives in this game, and there's no continues. You can continue right where the boss was. But you don't go out to a continue screen. You just will respawn right on the boss fight. So you can try it as many times as you need to. You don't have to redo the stages. The boss acts as a stage in this game, so anytime you get to a boss, you'll start from the beginning of the boss fight if you die. So nothing too hard here. You're going to have to, run through some obstacles and shit like that. Maybe take out some of the enemies. Those guys can be a little dangerous. You got to dodge them. You can grab a shield there if you want to go all the way down. I don't know if you can get back up, though, so I didn't bother trying to get that. This stage really isn't that hard anyway that you would need the shield. It's pretty simple. It's not too long either. That's an easy shield to grab, so you can get that one. When you jump on those platforms, they go down immediately, but you can kind of wait a little late to jump to grab that shield. This stage is definitely a little bit more challenging than the previous stage, but if you play it carefully, it's really not too bad. Definitely a longer stage, though, but pretty simple overall. You know, it's not really that dense. It's just kind of spread out. More of the same here, a lot of the same enemies and obstacle style. You can get some health there, which is useful. That weapon isn't too bad. I don't think it does a lot of damage, though, but it has a little bit more of a spread. I mean, I still prefer the that purple shot most of the time. Whenever you do get hit, you do lose your weapon, though, too, as you notice. So now we have a boss. This boss is very easy. Just stay on the opposite side and keep jumping and firing. When he gets close, switch sides. That's all. Try to avoid the shit that falls from the ceiling. But aside from that, just keep jumping and shooting and switch sides. Most of the bosses are really, really easy, aside from the final boss is a little tricky in his first form. It can be tricky, but it's not bad when you realize that in the upper right corner there's a percentage reading on the boss's health, so at least on the final boss you can kind of play a little game with yourself and see how low you can get his health until he dies, you know, to keep it interesting. I kind of just zone out on shit like that, and I just kept trying the same shit again until he died, which was a very simple strat that I used, but it wasn't guaranteed. But eventually it would break through. So that's what I'm going to show. And it doesn't require much skill at all. And you will beat it eventually doing that. So as long as you're patient and just grind out that method, it'll work. It didn't really take that long. So this world gets quite a bit harder than the other worlds. So this one is a bigger difficulty spike. I don't know about this first section right here, but I know there's some tricky parts on this stage. Or this world, I mean. This first stage, maybe not as much. It's kind of like a little introduction. I don't think there's that much going on in this stage. A lot of these stages, it was kind of a blur. I beat this game yesterday, but I wasn't really, memorizing, what stages were what. I just kind of just went through it. But I do remember this world had some tricky sections. The cactuses can be kind of annoying when you see the large cactuses because they take a lot of hits and you can't get past them unless maybe you take a hit and run through, but it's not really a good idea unless you're trying to speed run. But this guy can be a little bit annoying since you're on these platforms and he takes a lot of hits. So I did get hit twice. It's tricky not to get hit on that part. But you do get at least one piece of health back, so it's really not that bad as long as you can survive it. That's probably the hardest part of this stage. So, I mean, that part is definitely not one of the hard parts that I remember. I think there is a hard part on this world, though, if I remember right. I may be thinking of another stage, though. This guy does shoot behind him, but you can kind of just ignore him once you get past him. If you take the hit, you can just kind of move forward. You don't take the hit and just bust through. But yeah, that's it for that stage. Really not too hard. I think this stage is a little bit tricky. But maybe not. Now, this one's not too bad. I think it might be the next world that I was thinking about. I think it's the final world that has some tricky areas. But there's a little bit of a challenge here. But if you keep jumping on this platform and making short jumps while you keep firing, you'll clear out most of the enemies. I don't really recommend making the full-length jumps most of the time, but like shorter jumps seem to work pretty well. I just kept doing little short jumps and firing, and that got me through a lot of this. Now, maybe if I was jumping a little higher, I could have taken out those things that drop the bombs too, so you could try that. But as long as you keep jumping and firing, it's really not too hard. You should break through eventually. So now you're going to see the boss, which you can pull some major bullshit on, and you don't have to dodge anything. So just go right up here. Keep your foot on the edge of the platform like that and keep firing, and it's a completely safe spot. So you can just drain all the boss's health. Very, very fucking easy. Otherwise, you'll have to dodge his fireballs or whatever, and it's a little tricky to dodge the bounces. If you're going to go that route, then you want to kind of judge where those fireballs are going to bounce. You look for where they're going to bounce to, instead of where they are on screen. Try to anticipate where they're going to go next, and then you can play it that way. But I only did that very briefly before I figured out that trick. So now this is where the difficulty spikes up. This may be the hardest stage in the game, if I remember right. Yeah, this is the hardest stage in the game. So this is tricky. For those, you cannot destroy those turrets that shoot the lasers, so you're just going to have to time it based on when they flash. So you gotta look at them and see when they flash. That means they're going to shoot. So you got to keep track of that. Take out these red turrets and these flying guys before you go up here to get the health if you need it. I didn't get hit this time. But I had to repeat this quite a few times. This was a tougher stage. So for these things, you can jump in the middle of them. You see, you activate them and jump through the middle of the bullets. I didn't figure out that until late, and then that made the stage much easier. So now I'm slowing down because I didn't really know what was coming up next. But you do have to be wary of the lasers and other shit while you're doing all that, so it is tricky. Definitely not an easy stage. But this is as hard as the game gets. So after this, you'll beat the game shortly after. For these, I just lure them to explode a little bit early, and then I just move away. Since there's 3 of them in a row, I didn't really want to chance it to try to run through them or anything. So yeah, that's it. Pretty simple, but it's a tricky stage. There's a lot of shit that can easily hit you. It just takes some practice and understanding the way the stage works. This is actually another one of these stages that was tricky as well. This is challenging. Not as hard as the previous stage for me, but tricky. I'm not really trying to dodge the lasers when I play this because I get to start back at the beginning of the stage, so I'm not really busting my balls trying to dodge all that shit. My focus is just jumping from platform to platform as you saw me doing. Making short jumps from platform to platform. Now, I might make long jumps to skip a platform, which you probably saw me doing, so you can do that as well. But you want to make it to the end of that last missile, and once you get to the last missile, you're going to just ride it down. And you can just make some short jumps to try to clear out anything in your way. And those orange little spiky tail fins of the airplane or whatever don't actually hurt you. I didn't realize they were in the background when riding the missile, so you don't have to try to actually avoid them or anything. So that makes it a lot easier. So this part, I believe this is the final actual stage before the bosses. So this one is a little tricky. But I didn't find it to be as hard as that first stage in this world. That one gave me the most trouble. But each one of these stages is definitely offers some challenge. So it's just memorization of what to kill and how to move. It's always the same. So if you're having trouble, you'll just have to find a route. Or you can see the route that I'm taking. It definitely works. I like to lure that thing to explode before I try to jump on top of it. But, it's basic enough. It's a little tricky with the laser and that explosive thing and then another laser, so you got to kind of be careful. But now you'll see what I do for the final boss. This is the first form. So I get my spacing. See how I'm spaced to his leg on the left side? I'm spaced in a way where I'm like just a little bit farther away from where that is. There's a certain spacing I use, and it's somewhat of a sweet spot where I can keep jumping and shooting, and the missiles usually miss me. And if I time my jump right, the white balls also miss me. So that's what I'm going for. But it didn't work perfectly. You know, I still get hit, but it's somewhat of a sweet spot where you saw me jumping. You got to find that little sweet spot where you can keep jumping and not really taking damage for a while. And once his health goes down all the way, he'll be dead, obviously. But, just keep an eye on that health counter and just try to get it lower and lower, as you keep playing. So now you get another checkpoint here, so you don't have to redo that first form. And this is very easy. Just stay back on the backmost platform and just jump and shoot. Those falling triangles don't actually hurt you, even though they look like they would. So it's very easy. The first form is tricky, though. It's a little tricky. But if you stay in that sweet spot and keep jumping like I did, like full-length jumps and keep firing, eventually you should break through without having to do any special dodging or anything like that. You should be able to get through eventually doing that. It's not a perfect strat, but it makes it easy enough to beat. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.